How's it going, everybody? This is Ask Me Anything About Politics. So, if you've got any questions about politics, just let me know in the chat, and I'll do my best to give you a great answer. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it, so this is the place where you can ask all of your questions, and you don't have to worry about, getting ridiculed or roasted or debated or judged or anything like that. This is a judgment-free zone. This is a fight-free zone. I am not here to argue with people. I am just here to answer all of your good faith questions about politics. I don't care who you voted for. I don't care if you didn't vote at all. I am just here to answer your questions because I know politics can be really intimidating. I know that it can be like learning a new language to try to figure out like what all these various agencies do and who are the key players, because when we talk about politics sometimes you just call these people by their last names, and if you don't know who Grassley or McConnell or Patel or Hegseth or Buttigieg are, it can be really difficult to enter into conversations around politics. And if you don't know what things like the filibuster or continuing resolutions or reconciliation are. And again, it can be really difficult to be part of the conversation. So, this is the place where you can ask all your questions about politics and you don't got to worry about any kind of judgment or ridicule. I don't make fun of people for not knowing things. I also don't make fun of people for having different political beliefs than me. If you're further to the right than me, if you're further to the left than me, I do not care. I am just here to answer your questions about politics. And I don't do debating or fighting. This is not one of those shows where I call people up and I yell at them for having different political opinions than me. I'm not trying to own or roast or burn anybody. I am just here to answer all of your good faith questions about politics. Ryan on top asks, are you accepting guests? I don't typically accept guests, but I have been known to change my mind, so stick around, prove to me that you're here in good faith, and we'll call it a maybe. But if you got a question in the meantime, feel free to put it in the chat. Oh, hey, Scott says, was FDR terrible president for starting Social Security and taking all our gold? No, I mean, Social Security is one of the most significant and beneficial and well working programs that we have here in America. It has saved, generations of old people from starving to death in the street. So no, I would not say that he is uh, you know, a bad president for starting a Social Security. Rig Av says, what's the difference between left and right? They're all the same now. Do you agree? They're not the same, Rig, and I will answer that question, the difference between left and right, in just a second. AX says, is there any possibility of getting rid of the Electoral College? So there's two ways that we could potentially do it. One would be a constitutional amendment to get rid of the Electoral College, but you would need, I believe, 2/3 of the House and 2/3 of the state legislatures in order to even call a constitutional convention, whereby then you would be able to get rid of the Electoral College. But there is a mechanism that currently exists for us to get rid of the Electoral College, and it's called the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. I'm going to say it again for people in case you want to write it down. It's called the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. And basically what it does is you get all these states' legislatures to agree that they will award their electoral votes to whoever wins the popular vote. And if there are enough states to equal 270 electoral votes that sign up for this, it will essentially completely invalidate the Electoral College. And I personally think that we should. And so if you live in a state that has not already ratified the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, I think that you should call your state reps and tell them that you want your state to sign up for the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. All right, Rig Ov, I don't know if you're still here, but yeah, so the difference between left and right, it's difficult to get into because there's what the left says they are and what the right says the left are, and there's what the right is and what the right says the right is and what the left says the right is. So it really kind of depends on who you ask. I'm going to try to give you the most objective breakdown of the difference between the political parties in America. So, on the left, you have the Democratic Party. Democratic Party is much more institutionalist than the Republican Party is. They believe in upholding norms and the Constitution. They are for reasonable gun control reform. taxing the rich, funding the government, having government agencies that help the American people. They believe in climate change. They believe in regulating industries to protect people from those industries. And yeah, there are other, they believe in making voting easier for people. Just a couple of examples there. The right is more of the party of trickle down economics, meaning cut taxes for the wealthy. It will give them more money, and then they'll spend more of their money, and then that will eventually trickle down to the rest of us. Trickle down, I should also mention, doesn't work. We know it doesn't work. It's basically been in place since the 80s, and that shit ain't trickling down. The right does not believe in any kind of gun control legislation. They fight against it tooth and nail. They believe that women should be thrown in jail for trying to get an abortion. They believe in cutting regulations for businesses because they believe that businesses flourish when there are no regulations on them. And if you're worried about things like, a company's factory polluting your water, well, the free market will take care of all that because people won't shop at that store anymore if they're polluting the water, and then they'll eventually go out of business. Let's see here. Yeah, I think generally like a little bit more authoritarian, I would say, do whatever Donald Trump says. There's also like, what is the right now in America now that Donald Trump is president? And that is much more authoritarian, do whatever Trump wants you to do. All right, so I hope that was, it definitely wasn't, all encompassing. There's a lot of specifics there that are still left on the table. But, there's some massive differences between the two parties just by itself. Tank says, is it to make the documentation process easier? Hey, Jared, I'm back. I was an 18-year-old with a bunch of questions. Do you know what these protests are for? So the protests are for a bunch of different things. People have noticed that the Trump administration is trying to act more like a king, more like an authoritarian, more like a dictator. And people do not believe that that is okay. Trump is ignoring the courts and the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, all otherwise known as ICE, has been acting unlawfully and unconstitutionally, in addition to immorally. Like, they're just being mean, terrible people. And so people don't like that. People don't like it. They believe in due process, that if you are accused of a crime or of being here illegally, that you should be given an opportunity to fight that charge and provide documentation for the fact that you are legally allowed to be here or that you did not do that crime. Whereas ICE is just deporting people, not even to their home countries. They're sending them to, foreign torture prisons in El Salvador and South Sudan and Libya. I know that sounds like hyperbolic if I'm calling them torture prisons or concentration camps, but they really are like not just regular prisons. Like, they are really bad places that ignore human rights, and that for all intents and purposes, like, you go there, you have exactly zero chance of getting out. And so people are fighting against that. They're fighting against the fact that Donald Trump has sent the military and the National Guard into American citizens, which is blatantly unlawful and unconstitutional and completely unnecessary. Like, the LAPD has already said many times that they did not need or want the military here. So yeah, there's a bunch of stuff in there. They're also upset with the corruption stuff. Like, Trump is currently accepting massive dark money donations from foreign nationals via his meme coin, via the plane that he got from Qatar, the fact that he still is operating many businesses, and he's like, he's got a phone now and shit like that. So yeah, they're upset about a whole bunch of different things. Thank you very much for your question, man. I appreciate that. Lisa says, two wings, same bird. That is completely inaccurate, Lisa. That is also what the billionaires would like you to believe. They want you to believe that both parties are the same, to get you to not be involved in politics, to get you to throw your hands up in the air and be like, we're fucked either way. Miss Deline, good to see you again over on Twitch. If Gavin Newsom isn't brave enough to stand up to Trump, how can we expect him to stand up to Putin? And she as president, not trying to fearmonger, but these countries are still nations with their own national interests. I don't know where you're getting that Gavin Newsom isn't brave enough to stand up to Trump. Like, I have no love for Gavin Newsom. I mean, I do think he's better than basically every Republican candidate, but, I definitely have some criticisms, some very valid criticisms of Gavin Newsom, but not standing up to Trump is not one of them. Like, he has been, he has been the ideal of the way that the government should stand up to Donald Trump. He's been there on messaging. He's fought him on the courts. He's being very visible about it and loud about it. So yeah, I don't even know where you're coming up with that, Mr. Lean. Theo loves the Cubs says, "What's your take on trans athletes?" The trans athlete issue is completely fabricated by the right wing. These are cases that involve like 11 people, and those 11 people affect the lives of like, I don't know, 100 people total, something like that. It's dumb the way that the right says that this is like the biggest issue in America, while people are having trouble putting food on the table and paying for medical expenses and worried that World War III is going to be breaking out sometime soon. And meanwhile, like Donald Trump is again accepting billions of dollars in dark money donations through his meme coin from foreign nationals. So yeah, trans people, I believe, have the right to be able to play sports. And so they should be able to play sports in the league that they are most comfortable with. And if there's somebody that's just like fucking blowing all the women out of the water because they're so fucking incredible because they have an unfair advantage, then we can deal with that on a case-by-case basis. But trans women athletes don't have universally an advantage over every other athlete. Like I believe there's never been like a trans woman athlete in the Olympics. Like I believe that they barely even qualify for the Olympics. I believe that sports records are still firmly in the hands of naturally born women as opposed to trans women. So it's a fake issue. I don't give a shit if a trans person wants to play sports. Let them play sports. Also, it's like, are sports supposed to be completely fair? You know, like Shaq is half giant and Shaq is half giant, and it doesn't seem fair that he plays against mere mortals. But you know, there you go. I just saw a video of a high school basketball player who is like 14 years old and already 6'5" or some shit like that. Like, is that fair? I don't know. All right. GA Trump Girl says, "Why is Diddy's party list all Democrats?" They're not. And you know that Trump is on video saying that him and Diddy were really good friends, right? But thank you for asking a question, GA Trump Girl. I'm not here to fight, so I will answer any good faith questions that you have. RK, good to see you. Thank you for being here. Lynn Arthur said, "And the word is that Trump has already doubled his wealth in 4 months through meme coins." That is the same reporting that I have seen as well. MN Bartender 79 says, "How do you feel about what Trump said about Minnesota and walls?" I mean, Trump and the Republican Party are complicit in all of the right-wing violence that is happening in this country right now, where a protester in Salt Lake City was shot and killed, in addition to the 2 state senators who were shot. Of course, January 6th happened. Another protester got hit by a car. Somebody was mailing pipe bombs to, high-profile Democrats and reporters and shit like that. Trump has told his crowd that he likes it when they do violence. He has said as much. He encourages them to do violence. He pardons them when they get convicted of doing violence. They have sent a clear message that they do not give a shit if people do violence against their enemies. And their enemies are Democrats, Democratic voters, reporters, etc. They made jokes about Nancy Pelosi's husband getting attacked by a crazy person with a hammer. This is entirely on their hands. They have blood on their hands, and it is their fault. It is reason 1,568,000 why nobody should ever vote for a Republican again. We need them to feel the electoral consequences of stoking this kind of political violence. Like, it is their fault. And they should pay electorally by never having political power ever again. All right. Mr. Lean says he's letting unmarked people kidnap his citizens. That is why he would not just arrest the unmarked one. I'm going to be honest. ICE is playing a dangerous game. Being unmarked, they might get hurt concealing their identity. I mean, I don't believe that ICE should be concealing their identity. I think that they should have fucking uniforms. They should be identifying themselves as law enforcement, because how do we know that they are not just some fucking random people kidnapping citizens off of the fucking street? Gavin Newsom is doing what he can. You know, like the LAPD is not going to fight the military. You know, like the National Guard and the Marines are there protecting ICE, making sure that they are allowed to do what ICE is fucking doing. So I'm not really sure what extra you think Gavin Newsom can be doing, Mr. Lean, but he's doing it. Like, he's doing the work. But yeah, you know, tell me if I'm wrong, Miss Lean. I'm pretty sure that he's at the forefront, my man. No, good to see you again. Says, I've been having issues with the Iran conflict, but the IAEA Central Iran, I don't know how to square this. I haven't read up on that yet. No. I'm so sorry about that. Thelonious says Gavin can secede. I mean, I don't recommend that California secedes because Russia is behind the California secessionist movement. Marcia says, was Iraq accused of having weapons of mass destruction? They were accused of having weapons of mass destruction, and they didn't. All right. Scrolling up to the top here. Grace says, but they are criminals. Oh my fucking god, you voted for one. Yeah, that's pretty funny. TJ says, please call the left if you are calling out the right. Well, I mean, I'm talking about politicians, number one. I'm not talking about voters on either side. I'm also talking about talking heads. So Ben Shapiro, Charlie Kirk, etc. There is nobody on the left who is calling for violence and encouraging violence and pardoning people for doing violence the way that Republicans in the Trump administration are, TJ. So there is a massive difference. And the exceptionally not woke FBI has come out time and time again with all of the data saying that right-wing violence is a bigger threat and occurs more and is worse than left-wing violence by a wide margin, TJ. I'm pretty sure that's what you were talking about. Anon says, hard to sympathize with billionaires who benefit off of us. I completely agree. Let's see here. Get your own thought. 25 years of brainwashing is enough for me. Not really sure what you mean by that, G.A. Trump girl. J-Sick Hodel says, when did he say that? When did he say what? J-Steck, please clarify. Fog of War Productions. Joe Biden's speech in Philly was an open declaration of war against Republicans. I completely disagree with that. Fog of War Productions. Joe Biden has been a model of bipartisanship. He passed a bipartisan infrastructure bill, the first in over a decade, the first bipartisan gun control legislation in almost 2 decades. He is the one who said during the primary debates that he would get Mitch McConnell to come to the negotiating table, and he was laughed at. So 100% no. Joe Biden did not, in a speech, declare war against the Republican Party. I like you, Fog of War Productions. You're a regular, but you're way off base on that one, my man. Voodoo Witch says, everyone forgets who picked on Israel. That's not shared. They have been fighting for 2,000 years. I don't really care about the history, Voodoo Witch, but Israel is the more powerful nation right now, and they are doing war crimes. And they don't have to be doing war crimes. They could instead be the bastion of peace. But what Netanyahu wants is war. He wants to take over the surrounding countries. He wants to drag America into that war as well. And he wants to stay prime minister because once he's not, he goes to jail for corruption. Chase Coldit says, do you support war with Iran? No, I do not. Jason Hodel says, I think it's just their leader again. I think you're referring to Netanyahu. Bologna says, I disagree. Iran is far more powerful. That's why Israel asked us to save them. I mean, Iran does not have a nuclear weapon, and Israel does. Iran does not have the backing of America, and Israel does. So, yeah, Israel is way more powerful than Iran. Let's see here. Fog War Productions says, did you see Ted Cruz get folded by Tucker Carlson on the Iran issue? Yeah, and it's also, like, doubly infuriating. Like, you look at that, and you're like, oh, so Tucker Carlson, so you can be a good journalist. Like, you could do this if you wanted to, but you only decide to do this when it's issues that you are particularly concerned about. It is just further evidence that Tucker Carlson is full of shit, that he can just like turn on the be good at journalism switch when he fucking wants to. The guy can fucking suck my butthole, but I do like it when the two people that I hate fight each other with fists and bats. Thelonious says, serious question, why do you dislike Tucker Carlson? He's a liar, he's an opportunist, he's a con artist, he's the fucking heir to like a frozen food fortune or some shit like that. He stokes right-wing political violence, he lied to people about the Dominion shit, he fucking hates Donald Trump, and yet he goes out there and fucking S's D 24/7 because he knows what side of his toast is buttered, So yeah, he's a liar, he's a con artist, he's a fraud, he hurts people. Through the line. He doesn't like physically hurt people that I know about, but through his actions, there are knock-on effects which cause people great pain. It's the Rocketeer. Yeah, but has Gavin punched any of them yet? Yeah, that's a really good point. I guess Gavin Newsom could just be like fucking out there karate chopping ICE agents, Dan Blackbird, Tucker Carlson also once interviewed a man in a dirty shirt who claimed to be Obama's secret lover. Yeah, it doesn't really seem like some hard-hitting journalism there. Really double-checking his sources Tanya Reyes says, where or how did the political system fail? Excellent question, Tanya Rees. So regulars, get your bingo cards ready. I have, there are a bunch of reasons why you could argue we are currently in the state that we are politically. I do not think that it would be a stretch to place almost all of the blame on on a specific group of billionaires who have made it their goal to dismantle government, to create division in government, to ruin our political discourse, to elevate right-wing ideologies and libertarian ideologies. There is a book called Dark Money by a woman named Jane Mayer who outlines this decades-long, generations-long secret war that the billionaire class has been waging against the rest of us. A war of information and deconstructing the government so that they can keep all of their billions of dollars and reign over us like fucking aristocrats, so that there are no rules for them and they can just fucking poison us all with the chemical runoff from their factories while they're flying around in fucking private jets eating caviar and lobster 3 meals a day. I highly recommend that book to everybody who is watching this live stream, Dark Money by Jane Mayer. It is infuriating. Before I read that, I was like, I'm pretty sure that the billionaire class is behind a lot of this propaganda and misinformation that I've been seeing on the internet, but I didn't have any hard proof. And then I read Dark Money, and I was like, oh my god, it was 1,000 times worse than even I suspected it was. Juanita, what a nice thing to say. Thank you for being here. Viking Warrior 58 says, are you talking about Soros? No, I'm not talking about Soros. I'm talking about the Koch brothers and the people of their ilk. I think it's really funny that the right always talks about Soros like this guy who is running a left-wing conspiracy to flood the world with left-wing propaganda, when literally every other billionaire is doing that for the right instead. I don't really care what George Soros does. I think that what he's doing is fine. It seems completely legal to me. But what the Koch brothers and the billionaire networks that they are working with has been sinister and underhanded and illegal. But yeah, you can miss me with that fucking George Soros nonsense. If you have a problem with what George Soros is doing, you're gonna fucking lose your mind when you find out what fucking Elon Musk did during the 2024 election and what the Koch brothers have been doing for decades. Viking Warrior says, you mean paying people to riot? It really seems like you're not here in good faith, Viking Warrior, but also no. George Soros did not pay people to riot. That has never happened. All right. Fletcher says, I invested in oil companies. Is that good? I mean, it might be good for you making money, but I don't think that it's moralistically good, because when you invest in companies like that, you are supporting them, even if only it is like 0.0001%, All right, let's see here. There's no sound, Mr. Bigglesworth. Can anybody else confirm that on either YouTube or Twitch, that there's no sound? Let me know in the comments. All right. Yes, on TikTok. The Iran crisis has driven a huge wedge in the GOP. On my end, there's a great sense of betrayal. I think that they are right, but I think, everybody needs to recognize that Trump is a fucking liar, and that he will say anything that he needs to get what he wants, and what he wants is to be out of jail and have a ton of power and be able to break the law with no consequences and steal all of our money. Alrighty, let's see here. Okay, let's see here. Dark Money by Jane Mayer. Did I hear that right? Yes, you did, Flunk Sauce Dragon. Yes, you did. Fletcher CC says, I think Trump is 80% funny and 20% stupid. I think he's probably like 99% stupid and maybe 1% funny, Fletcher CC. But thank you for being here. Mr. Biggergore says, must have been on my side. Alrighty, scrolling down to the bottom of the TikTok comments, Vibrator said, all these no lives do is go in lives and talk shit. No employment here. I mean, I have a job. I don't know what you're talking about. Blurk says, we need to get people to show up to support for anti-corruption laws town by town. Do you agree? 100%. I mean, that's just one of many things that I think people should be doing right now. But yeah, 100%. Michelle Beechel says, isn't that what everybody wants? LOL. What do you mean, Michelle? If Kanan1 says, with your bias, you'll never learn the truth. I'm not biased. Falcon War Productions never thought I'd die fighting side by side for the Democrats. How about a friend, Falcon War Productions? Alan Garlick says, what type of power would Black Americans garner if they voted as a bloc? Um, it's an interesting question. You're talking about like the strategic possibility of every Black American voting together on every issue. And it's a difficult question because like there's no the African American community is not a monolith. There's all different types of people in that group, but they still represent a pretty small portion of the population. So the reason why minorities and marginalized communities have any power in this country is because they work together in a rainbow coalition that is the Democratic Party with the LGBTQ coalition and the Latin coalition and so the women coalition, etc. So yeah, Fletcher CC says, "Are you a vegan?" I'm not 100% vegan. I believe in that being vegan is better for the planet and it is better for your health. But so I try to eat vegan as much as I can, but I'm also not dogmatic about it. Like me and the wife just went out yesterday and we had some steaks and they were delicious. Alice Herrick says, "What do you think about Michael?" I don't know who that is. Joni Calder says they're supposed to sign the big bill by July 4th. What happens to us after that? I mean, I guess it depends on what's in the bill. We will be seeing a massive transfer of wealth from the poor to the wealthy. The rich people will have even more money, and the rest of us will have fewer government services available to us. I could spend an hour just going through all of the government services that would be kneecapped or destroyed by the big beautiful bill or what has already been happened through Doge. But just yeah, think about something that you require the government to do, like make sure that your water is clean and your air is safe to breathe, and inspecting your food to make sure it doesn't have salmonella, and letting you know if there's a measles outbreak, or doing something about bird flu, or making sure that Ebola doesn't come to this country, or protecting us from Russian disinformation, or Russian hackers, or North Korean hackers, or making sure that you get your Medicaid payments, or Medicare payments, or Social Security, or welfare, or making sure your streets are paved, etc. I said I wasn't going to do a list, and then I did a list. Blurk says, whether a policy has 0 or 100% support, there's a 30% chance it will pass in our system. So, Blurk, I know exactly which study you're referring to, and I have seen data recently to suggest that the methodology behind that is wildly inaccurate. So I can't tell you whether or not it is accurate or not. I know that rich people have a massive amount of influence in our country. That is not up for debate. But whether or not that specific chart is accurate is up for debate right now. So I would say have an open mind, where that is concerned. Fletcher CC says, "What is your point of view on LGBTQ?" Well, you said LBGTQ. I think it's LGBTQ. Live and let live. I say, do whatever floats your boat, as long as you're not impeding the life, liberty, and happiness of your fellow American citizens. Go crazy, man. As long as it is with another consenting adults, fucking go nuts. Alex Sassone, good to see you again. Quick question: what websites do you get your info from? Because there are no concentration camps, says Alex Sassone. So let's talk about that a little bit, Alex Sassone. So there are foreign gulags, like CECOT, which is spelled CECOT, which is the foreign gulag in El Salvador that the Trump administration has sent, I think, like over 800 people to without a trial whatsoever. Now, I refer to them as concentration camps. You can call me hyperbolic. You can say I'm being a little dramatic when I say that. They have a lot of similarities to concentration camps. They are not traditional prisons. They are places that have massive human rights violations. People die in those prisons, not of natural causes. They are not given, medical treatment and, nutritious meals, and they don't have like air conditioning and shit like that, So yeah, I call it a concentration camp. You can call me hyperbolic. You can call it a foreign gulag. You can call it a death camp or some shit like that, but that's what it is. And so, yeah, as far as like where I get my news from, I try to get my news from multiple sources. I get it from a news aggregator called Ground News. I also get it from from the Reddit news feed, which is also an aggregator. So I get it from a bunch of different sources that way. And I also listen to progressive media podcasts like Crooked Media and Chris Hayes' podcasts and stuff like that. But yeah, Alex, if you ever want me to send you some resources on what's going on where with these prison facilities that I call concentration camps that the Trump administration is sending immigrants to, email me, DM me. I will send you any resource that you need because that is 100% happening, my guy. And thank you for being here again. It's good to see you. All right, Fletcher CC says, "What is your opinion on the British?" I don't really have a strong opinion about the British. They're fine. They're a sovereign nation. I'm glad that Labour is in charge right now. Fuck the Tories, etc. Fog War Production: Central America is the epilogue of the Spanish Empire, and the Spanish Empire is the epilogue of Rome. What an interesting thing to say. Fog War Productions. Don't know if it's true, but it is interesting. Scott Clower suspending 10K per year per prisoner till unalived. Yeah, we're sending them money, Alex. American taxpayers are paying to send people without due process to foreign concentration camps run by dictators and warlords. It is fucking unconscionable, Alex. Please hit me up about this, my man. I will happily send you the information. Alrighty. Okay, and now all that is gone. Surfs. Fogwell Production says, Jarrett, you did what my liberal wife couldn't. You're going to make me vote Democrat in 2026. You're a peach, Fogwell Productions. Thank you for being here. And listen to your wife, man. Wives know what's going on, my man. Alrighty. Alan Garlic says, Dems do nothing for blacks. That's inaccurate, Alan Garlic. Let's see here. I was just humorously commenting on what you said about Trump, says Michelle. Yeah, I just don't remember what it was, Michelle. But thank you for your comment. Thank you for being here. Scrolling down to the bottom of the TikTok comments, Democracy Law says, is USA still stealing oil in Syria? I'm actually not 100% sure about that. You know, we have removed sanctions against the new government in Syria because the group that ousted Assad, I believe is the guy that used to be in charge of Syria, they have pledged to be not a militaristic and authoritarian government that stomps on the rights of their citizens. They said that they're going to be different, even though I believe they're former Al-Qaeda. So it's concerning, you know, but they said that they're going to do the right thing. And this was an insurgency regime change that came from inside the country, which is the most stable way for regime change to happen. So America is going to try to support that transition. But that's not why Trump has removed sanctions, by the way. He removed sanctions because Syria told him that they would let him build a Trump Tower there. Let's see here. Carmine says, if you wrote the broad, bodacious bylaw, what would you put in it? Tax cuts, not tax cuts for the rich. That's for damn sure. Increased taxes on the wealthy, electoral reform, just for starters. I mean, my laundry list of progressive policy agendas is going to bore people if I just go through that. Democracy Law says, why USA have any right in another's country? You don't own everyone. That is accurate, Democracy Lost. But for a long time, America has been the sort of like dominant power on the globe, both militarily and economically and culturally. And some presidents and some administrations have used that power very responsibly. You know, talk softly and carry a big stick. Use the soft power of diplomacy and culture in order to make the world a better place. But some administrations and some politicians have not. And they have just wanted to show the world how powerful we are by invading their countries and stealing their resources and just generally being pretty shitty people. You know, America has a rich and diverse history of doing great things and terrible things. And it's a massive bummer to be an American and, you know, have to live with all of the crimes against humanity that your country has perpetrated. But, you know, we're doing, you know, millions or billions of dollars of USAID around the globe to try to build hospitals and schools and wells and deliver people food assistance where they need it and medication where they need it and stuff like that. Now, all of that is done now that the Trump administration is in charge, and I would hope that the American people will wake up and actually do something to oust both Trump and the Republican Party from our government so that we can get back to being the good guys on the world stage. Let's see here. Hi, says Alex. Hi back. Michelle says, we are bullies sometimes. You know, you could argue most of the time, but not all the time. Ethan Walschlager says, "What is the No Kings representing?" The No Kings is representing a a uh, a cornucopia of shitty things that the Trump administration has been doing that seem very attempt at being a king, like like not being a president, like being a king, ignoring the rulings of the judiciary, for example. Courts are telling him to stop doing things or to start doing things, and the Trump administration has been ignoring them. Very king-like, very dictator-like, very authoritarian. And the Republican Party that's in charge of Congress is just letting it happen for some fucking reason. Yeah, but that's like only one of a bunch of different things that the No Kings protests were objecting to. Like, we do not like the fact that masked and non-badged law enforcement has been kidnapping people without due process and deporting them to concentration camps in foreign nations. We don't like that Trump is accepting billions of dollars in dark money donations through his meme coin from foreign nationals and the most wildly and obviously corrupt president in history. We don't like that they are dismantling the government, firing nonpartisan government workers and putting loyalists in those positions. We don't like the fact that he fired the heads of all the various branches of the military and is going to try to replace those with loyalists who will just do whatever the fuck he says, regardless if it is legal or constitutional or immoral. We don't like the fact that he sent the military and the National Guard into Los Angeles against the order of California's mayor and governor and police department. The police department who said, we don't want them, we don't need them, this is just going to stoke more violence and tension. But he did it anyways, because again, he's trying to be a dictator, he's trying to be a king. Let's see here. Scotty Guitar says, like unilateral decision to send bunker busters on a B-2 to Iran. Not really sure what you mean by that, Scotty. Sunshine Wildflower says, what do you think of having another No Kings protest on the 4th of July? I'm for it. Let's do it, man. BB Fan 1974 says, hey, have you heard the latest where ICE can hire bounty hunters and paying for each immigrant? I have not heard that. That is terrifying. Let's see here. Alrighty. Yeah, baby. Good to see you again over on Twitch. Do you think the U.S. should do more to move away from a need of illegal immigrant labor? That's a really good question, yeah, baby. And it's a little complicated because we're dealing with kind of like multiple motivating factors. We have declining birth rates in America. So it is valuable to us to have labor from immigrants in this country, be they legal residents, illegal, on a pathway to citizenship, regardless. It is true, though, that businesses tend to exploit immigrant labor because they can get them for cheaper, and they're not the ones that suffer any sort of legal consequences for that. Like, if ICE comes in and deports a whole bunch of people, like the person that hired those people knowing that they were not here legally doesn't have any sort of like legal ramifications for that. But yeah, I think that we need to recognize the value that immigrants bring to this country. It is a net positive for this country. I think we need to punish electorally by voting them out of office the political party that is constantly demonizing immigrants. Oh no! Somebody reported me for misinformation on TikTok again, which happens sometimes, and I almost always win these appeals because I do not do misinformation on my live channel. But I'm just going to take a second to do that. Yes, I did see that. It's the Rocketeer. It's a bummer. Right-wing trolls tend to do that to me a lot. But yeah, we actually have questions over on TikTok and over on Twitch and YouTube that I can get into in the meantime. So yeah, as far as like moving away from the need for illegal immigrant labor, I'm not sure if that world is ever going to exist because potentially we're going to have like AI and automation do all these jobs that immigrants are currently doing, but also that like college educated coders are currently doing and shit like that. So we're talking about a world where we need to potentially start thinking about universal basic income because there's just going to be so many fewer jobs available, in the world. And at which point the immigrant labor issue will kind of have solved itself, basically. But yeah, the short-term solution is to not do what ICE is doing. The short-term solution is to hire more asylum judges and immigration court judges. It is to my suspension has not been lifted yet. It is to work with the countries that the immigrants are coming from to make their countries not the places that they feel like they have to flee. Let's see here. Yeah, still waiting for that appeal decision on TikTok. Yeah, and disbanding ICE because ICE is acting like a rogue agency, completely illegally and immorally. Yes, Callie, I did see that. Right-wing trolls like to report my channel for misinformation. I always appeal. I almost always win the appeal, so it's just a pain in the ass. I just have to wait and wait for my access to be restored. Falong Sauce Dragon says, "What's your favorite part of the Dumpies parade? Squeaky tank, guy carrying the drone, something else?" I mean, just the fact that the No King's Day protest was so much more successful than his fucking thing, where conservative, generous estimates are saying that he had 50K people there versus the anywhere from 5 to 10 million people that were participating in the No King's Day protests. So yeah, it was very meaningful to be a part of that. Alrighty. So yeah, we're still waiting to see if my TikTok access has been restored. I'm logging back in now. So yeah, if anybody over on TikTok or Twitch, if Twitch or YouTube has any questions, now is the time to ask them. And let's see here, and we're back, baby. We are back on TikTok. So yeah, unless you guys have any questions over on YouTube or Twitch, we're going to be doing the intro vamp spiel again. Thank you very much. Welcome to the live stream, everybody. This is Ask Me Anything About Politics. If you got any questions about politics, just let me know in the chat. I am not here to fight with people. I'm not here to argue with people. I am just here to answer all of your good faith questions about politics. There's no such thing as a dumb question, so you can be as simple or as complicated as you like. I'm not going to make fun of you for not knowing things about politics. I have been made fun of in the past for not knowing about politics, for not knowing about American history and stuff like that. And I did not like the way that felt. So I vowed that I would not make people feel that way going forward. And that is part of the reason why I do these live streams. I'm also not here to fight with you. This is not one of those live streams where I call people up and I yell at them for having different political opinions than me or try to own them or prove that they're stupid or anything like that. I don't care who you voted for. I don't care if you're further to the left than me or further to the right than me. I am just here to answer all of your good faith questions about politics. And hey, maybe you're someone on the right and you're like, I've always wanted to ask Democrats why they're like this, why they vote this way, why their policies are this way. There's a lot of misinformation and propaganda about the left. So this is your opportunity to talk to a real life Democrat and ask them your questions, and I will tell you no lies. Alrighty. Valhalla Tactical India VTI says, "What you say about Boeing connection with politics?" So the issue with Boeing is that they have been illegally skirting safety regulations for a very long time. And they have been doing that because we have not had as strong of regulatory agencies as we have needed in order to force them to be doing all of the safety checks that they are required by law to do. The difference between what happened in the past and what's happening now is that the Trump administration and the Republican Party and DOJ are further dismantling the mechanisms by which we can force companies to regulate safety, and also that not having safety regulations is illegal, So if all of this stuff was happening right now, starting right now, as opposed to starting during the Biden administration, there would be no legal repercussions for Boeing the way that they were during the Biden administration. But because Boeing is an extremely profitable company, they could use their money to bribe Trump for pardons and commutations for any judgments against them, regardless of how many billions of dollars they owe the American people and people around the world for all of the harm and deaths that their malfunctions have caused. The Trump administration can just wipe that away with the stroke of a pen. And he has. Trump has already canceled like over $1 billion in restitution for people that were fucked over by giant companies and fraudsters because those giant companies and fraudsters bribed Trump to commute their sentences. Alrighty. Fox Sake says, "Good, MAGA, MAGA. All right, I do not approve of people spamming the comments, Ronan Silver, so you're out of here. All right, scrolling down to the bottom. Thank you for your question, Valhalla Tactical. I hope I answered it for you. Alrighty. Adenge20 says, do you support USA joining the Iran war? No, I do not. Scotty Guitar says, I can't believe you didn't understand that Trump considering to send B-2 to Iran unilaterally is king. Scotty Guitar, you're making a lot of assumptions on what I do or do not understand. Let's see here. Oh, you think Fox Sick is the guy that reported me? Yeah, probably, potentially. Dun T says, do you support Trump? No, I do not. Alrighty. Kenny says LGB does not equal TQ plus. That is a pharmaceutical corporate communist agenda. I hope you're kidding, my man, because that's a very weird thing to say. Patty Ron says, doesn't the president need approval from Congress to go to war with Iran? He does, but there are loopholes. You know, you only, if you're going to do war, then you need to have a declaration of war and you need to be approved by Congress and shit like that. But there are a lot of different ways that administrations can sort of like wiggle around those things. They can call them police actions instead. They can be special military operations instead. There was also special, military powers given to the executive branch after 9/11 that had not been rescinded. I forget the name of it, but it was called like the something of war powers or something. I forget what it was called. Somebody in the comments will probably know what I'm talking about. Don T says, do you like the Israel or the Palestine? I support the citizens of both of those countries, and I'm against the governing body of both of those countries because both Hamas and Benjamin Netanyahu are guilty of doing war crimes. Scotty Guitar said, you said you don't know what I meant by that. Remember? Yes, I do, because your comment was unclear. Sam Libert says, love your channel. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Sam. I appreciate you being here. Alrighty. Yeah. Welcome to the live stream, everybody. I answer your questions about politics. I don't care who you voted for. I'm not here to fight with you. I don't call people up and debate them or try to own them or tell them they're stupid. I am here to answer all of your good faith questions about politics, whether you are left, right, or center. Maybe you're somebody on the right and you've always wanted to ask a Democratic question because you wonder why we're so evil and why we dance in the woods and cover our bodies with the bloods of the innocent. You can ask me about that and I'll tell you, oh, that's not a real thing that happens. Jonah says, are there any policies of the clown that you do support and think would help American citizens? So Jonah, very quickly, I just want to say that I understand that you're probably asking that question in good faith, but I struggle against this idea. I fight against this idea that in order to prove your objectiveness in politics, you have to find the silver lining in both political parties or both sides of political politicians and stuff like that. But there is a massive difference between Trump and the Republican Party and Democrats and their politicians. Like one side is demonstrably worse, like way worse, and like it's not even close. And I find that when I am asked that question, it almost seems like I am being told, listen, both parties are basically the same. Can you be mature enough to find something good that Trump did and acknowledge the good thing that he did? I don't think that's necessary, though. Like, if one candidate is John Wayne Gacy, like, I don't need to look for the good in his policies, you know? So, yeah, could I come on here and say, like, I think Trump's Treasury Department getting rid of the penny is a good idea? Sure, absolutely. But I don't think it's productive. But thank you for your question. I really appreciate that. Don, I think Don, and I have a crucifix. Don Crucifix says, do you support abortion? I am pro-choice. And if you are pro-life, you should still vote for Democrats because Democrats are the only ones that have a platform to actually decrease the number of abortions. The Republican platform doesn't do anything to decrease the number of abortions. It only makes abortions more dangerous for women. Big says, Orange Man is so beautiful. I'm pretty sure you're being sarcastic. Timmy Harrison says, how is it possible that Trump changed the Constitution? I'm genuinely curious. So Trump doesn't actually change the Constitution. The way that you change the Constitution is by holding a constitutional convention. And even to get to that stage, you would need, I think, like 2/3 of the House to agree to it and 2/3 of the state legislatures. And that's probably not happening anytime soon. What Trump does is different. What Trump does is ignore the Constitution and ignore the courts and ignore Congress and just do whatever he wants so that he's effectively nullifying the Constitution. It is wildly unethical and potentially illegal what he is doing. But because he's in control of every lever of power right now, there is nobody to stop him. You know, the people who could stop him would be the Supreme Court, but he appointed 3 of the 9 judges on the Supreme Court. They have a super majority of conservative judges there, so they are not going to rule against him anytime soon. He's also has loyalists, people that will do whatever he says, regardless of the law or the Constitution, in positions of power in the Department of Justice and the military. So people are genuinely scared about going against him because they're worried that he's going to start like a military coup or some shit. Excuse me. And Congress could do something to stop him, but Congress, again, is in control of the Republican Party, and they are either on board with all the illegal and unconstitutional shit that he's doing, or they're scared of him. They are scared of him primarying them, or they are scared of his fans doing violence against them because he has encouraged his followers to do violence. Let's see here. Timmy Harrison says, but isn't he doing this that's against it? He is, and the courts are sometimes stopping him or trying to stop him, and sometimes he's ignoring the courts, and you know, it's a moving target. You know, like you're not like one day a free country and then the next day a dictatorship. It's like a bunch of falling dominoes, a bunch of little things happen here and there, like, all right, well, that norm has changed, and I guess we're ignoring this law over here, and, you know, blah, blah, blah. Dan says, is this the one time where the far left and right are united against war? I believe, I guess so. God says, why does every president since JFK has to kiss the wall? I don't know what you mean by that. Angie says, but he is doing to the benefit of the people, restoring the order. Angie, that is inaccurate. He is not doing anything good for the people. In the Hazard says, kind of like the violent protests that the left has been doing all year. The left has not been doing violent protests all year. The protests that have happened this year have been 99%. I do not condone violent property damage, so if there was damage or violence during those protests, then those people should be arrested. Here, Princess definitely says, is it important for today's youth to understand current events? I think it's essential. Dan says you talk about the Western Wall in Israel. You know, getting into the various motivations behind politicians supporting Israel is honestly, it's a little more than I have in me right now. I've been streaming for almost an hour, but come back and ask me earlier tomorrow, and I will fully get into that. But short version, AIPAC has a lot of power. Some Republicans believe that when all the Jews control all of the Middle East, then the rapture will happen. Scotty Guitar says, did you get banned from TikTok Live from time to time because of language community standards? No, I get banned. Sometimes I have my streams get paused because right-wing trolls report me for misinformation. I always appeal the decision. I almost always win the decision, and then I just come back a couple of minutes later. Angie says, yes, he does. Here in California, Democrats ruin the state. They allowed to steal $1,000, no charges. So, Angie, some of that is inaccurate, what you just said. You know, I would appreciate it if you asked a question instead of just making statements. Otherwise, I'm going to have to boot you. But yeah, there are the reasons why there are issues in any state are complicated. Like, why are red states the way that they are? Why are blue states the way that they are? It is really short-sighted and inaccurate to say that democratic rule has ruined California, when the reason why it's so expensive is because lots of people want to live in California. Lots of people want to live in New York and Illinois. On the whole, they are better states than red states. We have higher standards of living, higher quality of life, higher life expectancy, better healthcare outcomes, better educational outcomes, etc. So yeah, I would encourage you to get your news from other sources because it seems like what you're saying is inaccurate. King Cam says we stand for Trump. That is an example of the kind of comment that gets you blocked. I don't care if you have different opinions than me, but actually ask a question, be part of the conversation. Chezzy Bear says, when are they going to show Abrigo's knuckles and show us the MS-13 tattoos? There are no MS-13 tattoos on Abrego Garcia. Welds for Brownie Brittle says, it's expensive because they have almost 16% income tax. I live in California. It's the Democrats' fault. I mean, we pay more in taxes, but we get more in government services. Like, there are things that you don't get in states like Texas that you then have to pay for out of pocket that we get in California because we pay higher in taxes. Scotty Guitar says, do you have to deal with Trumpers in your own family? I do have Trumpers in my own family. I don't have a great relationship with them. And I wish that I had not burned those bridges, because I would very much like to try to bring them back into the world of reality. Welds for Brownie Brittle says, explain to me what those things that you get for higher taxes are. Welds, I'm going to be honest with you. I've been streaming for almost an hour today, and I'm a little too tired to get into that. But I am here in good faith. If you're here in good faith, come back tomorrow, send me a DM, email me through my website. I will 100% get into that with you. I just don't have the strength to do it right now because I'm a little tired. Let's see here. Princess definitely says, frustrating. TT is maybe blocking my messages to you. Wonder what to tell my littles about Trump. Oh, that's interesting, Princess. I'm not really sure. I mean, it's difficult. I mean, I don't have kids at the moment, and so, you know, depending on how old they are, I guess, yeah, I think it's important to talk to them maybe in the simplest possible languages about why it's important that people have rights and freedom, and that we choose our own representatives, and that there are laws that even the president has to abide by and stuff like that, and that he's not. Yeah, you know, it's complicated. Rena, great to see you again. Where do you rank Calvin Coolidge? I don't know enough about him to speak on it. Little White Dog says, is Trump corrupt? Big yes, big strong yes. He's the most obviously corrupt and most corrupt person, I think, on the planet. He is accepting billions of dollars in dark money donations through his meme coin from foreign nationals. He accepted a $400 million plane from the Qatari royalty. He has business dealings in all of these different countries with Trump hotels and trademark deals, and his fucking stupid ass kids are flying all over the country, you know, getting land rights and shit like that. Like, the corruption is unprecedented. It is impossibly large. You can't even imagine it. It's like trying to imagine the size of the largest star in the galaxy. Like, it just dwarfs the imagination. User a whole bunch of numbers says, are we really getting stimulus checks? Probably not. Victoria says, how do you feel about Israel and the Iran war currently? I'm worried about it, and it's all Trump's fault. It's because he's a fucking idiot who's being fucking dog walked by Netanyahu and Putin. I cannot believe that he is that weak that he let Netanyahu get away with this, where he was trying to negotiate a peace treaty with Iran so that they wouldn't get a fucking nuclear weapon. The same peace treaty, by the way, that he threw away that Obama had set up for no fucking reason. He just didn't like that Obama's name was on it. And now tensions are worse in that area than they have been in decades because of Trump and his idiocy and his inability to do any kind of meaningful diplomacy. Let's see here. Eru Abraham says, why aren't Republican politicians worried about Donald Trump not delivering on promises and blindly following? Because they have made the authoritarian calculation, which is, if we have complete control of elections, if we have complete control of the military, if we have complete control of the information environment, maybe we can get away with fucking everybody over, and then they won't have the power to fight back. It is a fool's errand, because the people always have the power to fight back. It can sometimes be harder for us to fight back and more dangerous for us to fight back. But they will lose this fight if people like me and you do the work. But that's what they've been doing. That's what they're doing for a really long time. They have been operating as though they don't need to worry about elections anymore. And it has to do with voter suppression. It has to do with billionaire-funded propaganda and billionaire-funded campaigns and flooding social media with fucking bullshit. It has to do with you know, this fucking case out of New York that they have potentially meddled with the vote counting machines and shit like that, which, you know, I'm still waiting to see how that case turns out before I rule on it, you know, but yeah, it is terrifying the way that they act with impunity, because it suggests that they think that it is impossible for them to suffer any kind of electoral consequences. Leo says, dang, you're very smart. Thank you, Leo. I appreciate that. Timmy Harrison says, is there anyone in office that's trying to stop Trump? Democrats are. There are a handful of Republicans that are lightly pushing back against him, but they're not doing nearly enough. And it is reason 1,586,000 why I don't think anybody should ever vote for Republicans ever again, because they're fucking asleep at the wheel. They're not doing their job. It is their job as the people that are in charge of Congress right now to be stopping Trump from doing what he is doing, and they're not. Because they're either scared of him or they're down with his plan. They're down with his fucking fascist plan. Victoria says, if Kamala is president, what do you think would happen? I'd be at fucking brunch right now. Sean Marie says they don't even care anymore at this point. Yeah, exactly. Chezzy Bear says, do you think MAGA supporters only care about their needs and not all Americans' needs? So, Chezzy Bear, I don't like lumping all MAGA voters together because there's some very good people in the MAGA world who just got tricked. They just got conned. And maybe if you were born into that family in that small town, going to that church, getting your information from that Facebook feed, only watching Fox News, then maybe you would be convinced that Trump is great and the Republican Party is great and Democrats are evil as well. Now, I'm sure that there are people in the MAGA movement who are billionaires who do not give a shit. They just want their fucking tax cuts and they just want their regulations cut and they don't care that people are getting hurt and killed in the process. And there are probably people in there, there are definitely people in there, I don't know what the percentage is, who are just fucking straight up racists. And they're like, I don't give a shit that you are pooping on my face so long as you poop on a brown person's face even harder. But yeah, I practice and I preach a kind of radical empathy where we recognize that there, but for the grace of God, go I. We can call shitty people, but that is very specifically why I direct all of my criticisms not to the Republican voters, but to Republican politicians and right-leaning talking heads like Tucker Carlson, Ben Shapiro, Sean Hannity, Bill O'Reilly, those fucking ding-dongs. Alrighty. Aimza for animals. I have no idea how to pronounce your name. Thank you. I really appreciate you saying that. Auntie M's, except for in regards to the children in Gaza, right? What are you referring to, Auntie M? Quim says, what do you think the biggest reason is that Kamala lost? Misinformation and propaganda. There's also an incumbency bias that everybody who was in power around the globe felt. People were upset about post-COVID inflation, so they uniformly voted against the people who were in power, regardless of whether they were left, right, or center. But I think the main thing is billions of dollars of dark money contributions put into social media platforms in order to spread misinformation and propaganda. If you polled swing state voters, more than half of them had inaccurate ideas of what Kamala Harris's platform was. Decriminalizing border crossings, forcing everyone to buy an electric car, not in the Democrats' platform, but more than half of American voters in swing states believed that that was in her platform. And that's all misinformation and propaganda. User a bunch of numbers. Where do you see us 5 years from now? If people do the work, back in a great and functioning democracy. If people don't do the work, fucking look at Russia right now. That is where we'll be in 5 years. Ainza, you gotta tell me how to pronounce that. Auntie M says, when Democrats are enabling genocide of children, definitely don't hold them accountable. I do hold them accountable. I vote against them in the primaries, Auntie M. But when the general election comes around, I'm going to vote for the party that is at least pretending to put pressure on Netanyahu to stop doing war crimes, as opposed to the Trump administration, which is actively encouraging Netanyahu to do war crimes and has resumed sending them 2,000 bombs and has canceled sanctions against illegal Israeli settlements in the West Bank and is openly advocating for ethnically cleansing all of Palestine so that he can build his fucking Trump Tower over there. A fucking Biden or a Harris administration, Netanyahu would not have had the fucking guts to start unilaterally striking Iran and trying to fucking murder their leaders and shit like that, and trying to continue to inflame tensions in that region. And that's better, Auntie M. Like, I know what you're doing here. I know you're trying to paint me as like a Genocide Joe supporter or some shit like that, but better is better and worse is worse. And I vote for better. Alrighty. SSP says Biden was sleepwalking the past 4 years. So if you read Jake Tapper's book, you'll have a better idea of like how cognizant and with it the Biden was and how much his team were covering for him. I haven't read it yet. I am currently waiting for it to come from the library. But from what I understand, I don't care. If Biden was basically asleep the entire time, if he was suffering from dementia, him and his administration still passed the largest investment in green energy in world history, the first bipartisan infrastructure bill in over a decade, the first bipartisan gun control legislation in over a decade, lowered healthcare costs for American citizens, capped the cost of insulin, capped the cost of asthma inhalers, walked the picket line with the Auto Workers Union. First time a president has ever done that in history. Lena Khan over at the FTC was breaking up monopolies. The NLRB was siding with the unions for the first time in decades. If that's fucking Biden being asleep, give me more. Give me more Biden being asleep. Give me his fucking dusty old bones. If that's what Biden not doing shit looks like. Alrighty, Mr. Hicks. Thank you. I think you have nice hair too. I can't tell. All right. Auntie M says, "What's worse than genocide? More genocide." Auntie M, more genocide is worse. But I know what you're doing. Like, are you a real person? Are you here in good faith? You know, you appear to be exactly the kind of right-wing billionaire troll that is trying to get people to not vote because you believe that not voting is going to somehow teach the Democratic Party a lesson. But that's not what gets Democrats to change. What gets Democrats to change is replacing them by voting for better Democrats in the primary. But when Republicans are in charge, everybody's lives get fucked. And if you think that you did a great thing by advocating for people to not vote for Democrats, there are fucking 800 people sitting in a fucking concentration camp in El Salvador right now who would beg to differ. Sorry, I'm getting a little spicy here, Auntie M, but I know what you're doing, you know? So if you're here in good faith, I promise to take down the temperature, but I suspect that you're not. Alrighty. Let's see here. Steph says, "Do you think we'll be going to war with Iran?" I'm a little worried. I am also worried. And I gotta be honest, I don't fucking know. And I gotta be honest, guys, I went on a little bit of a tear there because I got inspired by my friend Auntie M here. But I'm a little over time, so I gotta start wrapping things up. I just want to thank everybody for the questions and the comments and the likes and the shares and the gifts. I appreciate all the support you guys give me, whether it is the free kind or the paid kind. If you want to join my Patreon, you can. I've only got 4 people there. They're the best, but they're lonely, guys. Join them. You can also buy things from my store. Both of those things are on my website, jaredberenstein.com, and you can send gifts and subscribe on all the various channels and whatnot. If you have any questions that I was not able to get to on this live stream, my DMs are open, and you can also email me through my website. And remember, I made a bunch of overtures to people on this live stream to hit me up for specifics that I was not able to provide today. And I mean it, and I will respond. You can also join my Discord. I interact with people there sometimes, and I also have a really good resources on there for books and podcasts and things that everyday citizens like me and you can do to help fight the Trump administration. And just please, guys, do the work to stop this fucking authoritarian takeover. The only way that we win, the only way that we get out of this is if people like you and me do the work. Nobody's coming to save us. We are the only ones who can get us out of this. And so we got to do the work. We got to recruit other people to do the work. And if you want to know what the work is, go to my Discord. I got a thread posted with what the work is. Do the work, guys. Do the work. All right. Thanks, everybody, for being here. I will see you tomorrow. Same bad time, same bad channel. Do the work. Be good to yourselves. Be good to others. Do your self-care. I will see you guys here 11:30 a.m. Pacific time tomorrow. Take care. Goodbye. 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 Goodbye, 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 goodbye. James Hopkins and Flogsaw, sorry I was not able to get to your questions over on YouTube. But come